Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm joined by my co-host, Rusty Fender. Rusty, welcome.
Good to see you, Dave.
Hey, we have one of our best guests back.
Recurring,
and it's been a little while. Mary Gorham is
Mary.
here representing the Lackawanna Library System. And Mary, we've had you here before, but it has been a while, and we wanted to try to catch up on what's happening with this library system. One of the major events is the ongoing lecture series, and I understand that this year you've got a great attraction.
We do indeed, and it's actually a rescheduled attraction. If you remember back in November, we had a horrible snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
Right at the beginning of the winter season. It happened to be the day that our speaker was scheduled to come and talk. We had 900 tickets out.
Oh.
People ready to come and see him. And thankfully, he was willing to reschedule. I don't know if you remember that storm, but it was people that night were taking hours and hours to get home. They were stuck on the roads for forever. So we were really grateful that
and this is a major fundraiser for the library, isn't it?
Well, it's not a fundraiser.
It's not?
We raise funds to bring somebody in.
Oh, all
but
right.
We don't actually make a profit from it. It is free to the public.
Okay. Tell us about the guest and what we're going to hear about, and of course, obviously, where and when.
So the lecture is the American Masters Lecture. It's something that we do once a year. And we usually bring in somebody who has national or international reputation. And in this case, we're bringing in a novelist by the name of Colson Whitehead. And he wrote a book called The Underground Railroad. It's a novel. And he has won the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award for this book. He won any number of other prizes and was shortlisted for almost every literary prize there is for this particular book. It was also selected by Oprah Winfrey as her book of the year. And she said, "Oh, have I found a great book," which is great. So he gets the literary end, he gets the popular end.
Wow,
we think
is
he's going to be really exciting.
Major catch.
Absolutely.
Now, is this fiction, nonfiction?
It is fiction, and it's a fascinating book. He talks about the fact that when he was a child, as I think many children do, first time he heard about the Underground Railroad, he thought of it as a subway. An actual mechanical train,
actually,
that would take you from place to place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So in this book, he imagines that the Underground Railroad is an underground train.
Oh.
And it's really fascinating. So it's an interesting mix of stuff. He talks about a slave, a young woman by the name of Cora, who escapes. She uses the Underground Railroad to travel north. So there's a lot of really fascinating historical detail about life on the plantation, about the horrors that people went through during that period of time. But then there's also this kind of fantastic alternate history kind of thing where there are these people who are conductors on the Underground Railroad. It's not just a series of safe houses.
Juxtaposition
it's
to reality.
Actually, right.
And nothing could be more current with the Green Book winning and
Absolutely.
with racial
Yes,
relations.
yes.
This is the perfect time. Life
Absolutely.
is timing.
Sure, and obviously, while it is a fictional piece, it's based on a historical truth,
Precisely.
and just molded into the needs of the fiction.
Absolutely.
What's really fascinating is he talks about it being kind of like a Gulliver's Travels kind of thing. So if you remember in Gulliver's Travels, Gulliver was always journeying from one place to another place and finding all kinds of marvelous and dangerous things, and he usually would escape by the skin of his teeth. Well, that's very much what happens in this book as well. So as Cora travels from state to state, she finds herself in these situations where he totally invents these historical kinds of things, but he does it so well and so compellingly that there were times when I actually, went back and researched and said, am I remembering my history correctly, or is what he's writing really true? Yeah, it's really amazing. He's absolutely remarkable in that regard. He is actually a recipient of the MacArthur Genius Grant.
Wow.
So you've heard of those, I'm
Yes.
sure. and it's given to people who display extraordinary creativity and whatnot. And he certainly
Was
fills
that
bill.
award based on this book?
He got it before he wrote this book.
Oh, so this is a trend of his,
Yes.
his writing
So this,
style.
This is actually his 8th book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's written 8 books. Most of them have been novels. My favorite one, though, in terms of titles, is one called, and I always have to look at it so
Sure.
I get it correct, but it's got a great title. It is The Noble Hustle, Poker, Beef Jerky, and Death. And
I'm not sure how to respond to
No,
that.
neither
Yeah.
am I.
This
That
is great.
kind of speaks for itself.
So he was given a $10,000 stake by a magazine to see how far he could get in the World Series of Poker, and then come back and write about it.
Did he get anywhere?
He did not win millions of dollars, no. but it's a great book and very funny and very interesting. And he originally wrote an article and then expanded
Sure.
it into a book, so it's great fun. But he also has a new book coming out this year in July. It's called The Nickel Boys. And it is showing up on all the lists of the most anticipated books for 2019. So
He's got that reputation now where you,
does.
gee, what's next?
It's a little askew of
Absolutely.
reality, and people are going to check out
Yeah.
to it now.
Absolutely, yeah. He's, as I said, he's very creative. He puts together these fantastic fictional kinds of stories. A lot of what he's written about, this talks about the train, of course, but a lot of what he's written about is related to actual mechanical stuff. So he has a book called The Intuitionist that shows up on a lot of college reading lists. And he wrote about people who were elevator inspectors. Again, in a fantastic universe, not in real life. He wrote a book called John Henry Days, so he loves that whole historical kind of thing.
It
as
sounds
well.
like a modern day Jules Verne.
Well, it's really interesting. He's very difficult to categorize because he writes detective stuff.
Oh,
he writes science fiction.
genres
he
vary,
He writes
yeah.
historical fiction. So it kind of goes everywhere. So I guess he's got a little bit of something for
Yeah.
everybody.
Where will he be doing the presentation?
He'll be at the Scranton Cultural Center, and it's on Thursday, April 18th, and it starts at 7 p.m. Tickets are free. You can pick one up at any of the Lackawanna County libraries, or you can order them online through eventbrite.com. And if you're looking for it, you can find it on our website, which is www.lclshome.com. .org. Let me. Boy, I'm doing great here.
Scratch
Let
here.
me
We're
try it
going
one
to
more
restart
time.
the address. Stand by, get your pencil, get your paper ready. Here's where you're going to write to request the ticket.
And this is going to be correct this
Okay.
time. www.lclshome.org. And you'll find a link there to where you can get the tickets online. We already have about 500 tickets out.
Well, I was going to say, if you had 900 gone for the originally scheduled presentation, then this is going to be a hot ticket in town, so to speak. So
Better weather, too.
And better weather,
Winter events are so tough.
yeah, now
Absolutely.
the
town out.
venue's good.
Yeah, the venue is
At
good.
least you've got a
Absolutely.
nice auditorium there in terms
we
of seating
do.
and such.
We do. And people have actually asked if I have a ticket from the November.
Could they use it? That's a
originally,
good
so
question.
Could they use the tickets? And we are asking people to get a new ticket, simply so we can see, make sure that we have enough room
Sure.
in the
Yeah,
auditorium
sure.
for everybody to get
A
in.
valid total if
Yeah.
you get a new ticket.
Yeah. We have filled the Scranton Cultural Center's auditorium, so we want to make sure that everybody gets a seat.
Well, this is the latest in a long list of very impressive speakers for the lecture series. You and I talked before going on the air. You had Robert Ballard, who
We did.
found the Titanic, and who I just recently learned, and I was trying to remember where I read the publication, supposedly took X amount of weeks to find the Titanic. Actually, he found the Titanic in 2 weeks. He was on a mission for the Navy to find 2 lost submarines, which he found had the extra 2 weeks left and then was allowed to proceed
know
and
that.
find
That's
the Titanic.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, I'm a nut on the Titanic.
Yeah, me too.
So any little bit of information I find about that is really interesting. Who are some of the others you've had in, though?
Well, we had David McCullough.
Right, okay.
David McCullough, of course, is a historian who is a very popular writer, and he's written books about George Washington and about the Brooklyn Bridge and all kinds of things. So he was a big draw. We had probably the biggest crowd we ever got was for Michio Kaku, and Michio Kaku is a theoretical physicist. Now imagine that a theoretical physicist is going to be the most popular guy you're going to get. We had 1,800 people show up for that lecture.
My word.
We actually had over 2,000 people show up for the lecture, and we had to turn some of them away.
Oh, gee.
He writes a lot about the future, and he's well known from appearing on the news and on television, and so that was pretty exciting. We were excited to have him.
That has to be a challenge for I gather your board does the okay and the research on who is going to be invited. Now, as you say, Colson has a Pulitzer Prize and is known for some of the other novels and happens to have a couple of current ones, this one plus the one that's pending. So in a sense, he'd kind of be a logical target. But on the other hand, it would probably be in great demand throughout the country.
Absolutely. He has spent his time from November until now traveling to colleges and all kinds of places giving lectures. If you look at his calendar online, you'll see that he is very much in demand.
Yeah.
So we're lucky to get him.
Oh, so especially since it was a rescheduled event. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's going to be a little askew on these topics. Like this year, every speaker everywhere is usually from NASA with the 50th anniversary of the moon landing this July.
Yeah.
So it's like this is a little off-center, which will do probably really well.
Yeah. And it's interesting because usually for this lecture we do bring in people who I always think of as nonfiction speakers, and it's unusual for us to have a novelist for this particular lecture. But I think he's going to be wonderful, and I think he's going to be a real draw.
Well, as Dave said, it ties into a real event, probably the most realistic event of that period, and still, with the Green Book, as I mentioned before, still applies today.
Absolutely.
And I must admit, I'm interested, and I far prefer nonfiction. But from what you say about this,
I think you'd enjoy
I already
it.
have the
I prefer nonfiction as
It's a
well.
little different,
This sounds really interesting,
Well, before we close the program, we're going to remind you about this upcoming lecture and the tickets and how you can get them. But I don't want to take our time strictly on the lecture series because so many other things are happening with the library system. And when I say library system, Mary, how many libraries physically are operated in the county?
We actually have 10 libraries plus a bookmobile. So there are libraries in every community of any size throughout the county, and we also have a bookmobile that travels from place to place for people where it's a little bit harder to get to a library.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that because especially you've had some nice improvements in some of the libraries.
Yes.
I think of the one up near Moscow, for instance.
Yes, the North Pocono Library is our newest library. It's a beautiful building. If you're traveling on Route 380, take a look. You'll see it right off the exit from Moscow there.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous building and has seen tremendous use.
It's good then to see that the bookmobile is still a valid asset to you.
It's always important to do some outreach to people who perhaps don't have cars, perhaps who have a single car in their family and may not be able to get out during the day. So we try to reach out to people in a variety of ways. Another thing that we do on a regular basis is reach out to, for example, senior centers and daycares where people are spending their days, spending their time, and don't necessarily have the opportunity to hop in the car and drive to the library. So we try to get materials to them wherever we can find them.
And it's a good thing in those outlying areas, too, because let's face it, if a lot of folks don't drive and they're in the outlying areas, probably a lot of those folks don't have internet service in that area. So the technology is limited in those, unless you have satellite internet, which is very expensive.
That's right.
There's no cable in those areas because you have a house every couple of miles. So you're limited in technology. So that's why this does really well.
Absolutely. But speaking of technology, that is another way that we're reaching people that we never were able to do in the past. So we provide ebooks and audiobooks that are both downloadable. You can get them from your phone, from your tablet, from your desktop computer, wherever you may be. And last year, for the first time, we circulated more than 50,000 of those items, all purely online.
Oh, my word. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that shows a pretty advancement, a great advancement on the part of the recipients then, that more and more are turning to. Of course, there's another generation coming along that has grown up with the electronic technology, whereas those of my age and above, it's all new to us, and you have to look at it 4 times to realize how something works, which is another service the library has offered.
Absolutely.
For those that aren't schooled in that type of technology. You've offered classes, as it were, in
Absolutely.
learning it.
We do offer classes, and people can come in and learn any number of things, whether you're trying to learn, for example, the Microsoft Office products, how to use Word or Excel. If you're just trying to figure out how to set up an email account so that you can email your grandchildren, whatever it is that you're interested in doing. We also, all of our libraries provide people with help when they get new devices. So very often, during the holidays, people will get a new phone or a new tablet and don't necessarily know how to make it work. Yeah, so our staff will help you figure that out and make sure that you can get online, and especially help you get to our website so that you can start downloading
I
stuff.
may have to stop in.
There you go.
I've always been impressed, well, first of all, the physical layout and the physical structure of the children's library in Scranton. It's got to be one of the top ones in the state of Pennsylvania. But I know there's some major work going on over there right now. What is being done? Where does the project stand in terms of progress?
So the Lackawanna County Children's Library on Vine Street was built in 1915. And it was built as a universal, a Christ Scientist church. And so it's over 100 years old. And as you know, it's a gorgeous building.
Oh, it's classic, yeah.
It was redone in the mid-1980s to be the children's library. But like any building that's that age, it needs regular maintenance and regular repairs. So this year we're putting some emphasis on it with the help of the Lackawanna County Commissioners, who have provided some funding for us to get some things done there. If you go into the building, one of the first things you'll notice is that the floor is painted with landmarks of Lackawanna County and Scranton. So you're going to see railroad tracks, you're going to see Roaring Brook going along the floor, you're going to see all kinds of lovely things. But we get a lot of traffic in there, lots of kids, lots of little feet scuffling along. So we just finished having that floor redone, and that involved buffing it all the way down, redoing all of those graphics. They all had to be repainted.
my
They can take their shoes off and get the floor done.
There
That's
you
how
go.
to counteract that.
There you go. And then refinishing it so that it'll be in good shape for several years to come. We're also redoing the restrooms for children on that floor, which is an important thing. There's also, if you look at the front of the building, you'll see, behind the columns, you'll see the entrance to the building. There are 3 sets of massive doors.
Gigantic
Yes.
doors.
Yeah.
I said
Yes.
they're like opening a tomb.
Yes, you're right.
Absolutely. And those doors are heavy. And so when you open them, if you don't have a lot of strength in your arms, it's a difficult thing to do.
And you've got kids coming there.
And we have little children coming in. We have moms and dads with one in their arm and another one by the hand. So it can be tough to get in there. So what we're planning to do is to make the entrance accessible. We'll be using a mechanical assistance kind of device so that it'll work rather like a handicapped entrance
Pneumatics
button would
would
work.
open it on itself.
But you'll
Yeah.
retain
Exactly.
the character of the
Absolutely.
building,
That's
so to
good.
speak.
So what's going to happen over the next several months is that we will be removing one set of those doors at a time. We'll take them off site, they'll be refinished and then brought back and put back in place. So that's kind of an exciting job. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to look like when that's all done.
Glad it's being done though, because it keeps the facade of the building the way it was, back in 1915. You don't want to
Absolutely.
modernize something
Right.
like that with the massively high roof
right.
and all that,
And it is also on the historic register, the National Register of Historic Places, which means we have to be very careful about what we do to the outside
There's
of
a
our
whole
building.
bunch of rules and regulations where what you can and can't do with the building.
Precisely. Yeah. So it will look beautiful, I'm sure, when that's all done. We're doing some other work in the building as well that you won't necessarily see from the upstairs part of the children's library, but we'll be repairing the entrance that's on the side of that building that is our handicapped entrance. So it's used for people who have mobility issues, but it's also regularly used by people who are coming in for programs who have their children in strollers. So we're looking forward to getting that taken care of.
You have always had a lot of programs for kids in there. Have you had to put those on hold temporarily, or what?
We closed for a short time while they were doing the floor, but we're back open again, and everything is back in action.
Oh, so you won't have to, from now on then, you won't
That's
have to
right.
hold up any of the
That's
programs?
Right. Yep. So if you haven't been to the children's library for a while, it's a great opportunity to come in and see that floor and see how great it looks today.
Yeah. Well, it would seem then, but obviously the young crowd and their parents are attracted to that children's library. It seems to me that those people who have grown up with libraries continue to support them and continue to make use of them. There's a crowd in between there, and I guess maybe I think primarily starting with the teenage years, when I'm not sure that they would be as drawn to a library now as I was when I was a teen. What's happening with that age group?
So it's interesting. Teens are, as you might imagine, the hardest group to attract.
I would think so.
If you think about the pressures that kids have in their lives today, between academics and applying for college and having to make sure that they have all the right activities and things of that nature, they don't have a lot of time in their lives to really get out and do much of anything, including coming to the libraries. But we do have a dedicated group of teens who are interested enough in the library that they sit on what we call our teen advisory boards, and they try to figure out what kinds of programs, what kinds of materials might be of most interest to people who are in their same age group. And so we do some great stuff with them, and in many cases, because they're always looking for service projects or because they're always looking for activities that they can put on their college applications, we're able to provide them with some of those kinds of things.
I would almost think, though, that the technology that we've been talking about would tend to keep the teens away, because in their mindset they say, well, what I'm looking for my report, I don't have to. I mean, there was a time when we went to the library and you pulled out the books to do your report, and now they get on their laptop or even their smartphones and find what they need. I think maybe what they may be missing a connection, if I may fill in already for you, is that they can use that connection to come to you, to the library.
And that's why you got to keep up with the technology, because if you follow the technology, the teens will follow you.
That's exactly right. And so we do have a lot of databases that are online and available to anybody who has a library card, and including teens, so that from their homes, 24 hours a day, whenever they get around to doing that research paper or filling out their assignment, they can get online, they can find the information that they need, and they can get it from a reliable source.
Yes, yeah.
Which is really important. We all know that you can Google anything, and I use Google a lot myself. But you need to be aware that not everything that Google returns to you is something that is right.
I think one of the most common things people turn to is Wikipedia.
Absolutely.
And there's a warning on virtually every page there.
That's all user-fed.
Yeah,
I mean, you just get on, you sign on, and you type whatever you want until it's challenged by the folks at Wikipedia. So right or wrong, it's at your risk.
Yeah, so accuracy can be in question, whereas if you go on your device to the library, you know you're going to get a solid answer to things.
Absolutely. And all of those databases are available from our website. So, and all you need is your library card to be able to sign on.
Yeah, and I know I ask this every time, but I think it's so important, especially for those that don't think library right away. You got to get that library card, and wow, how tough is that?
Well, it's really tough. You can stop at any library and just get signed up with your name and your address and your contact information, and you'll get a card right off the bat. You can also go to our website and you can sign up there if you live in Lackawanna County, and we will send you a card in the mail.
And the price is non-existent. It's
That's
free.
right. It's free.
So
Absolutely.
it's one of those bargains in life that's still the best kind of bargain. All right, one more time before we close. Your lecture is coming up. Again, where and when, and our speaker.
The speaker is Colson Whitehead, the author of The Underground Railroad, a Pulitzer Prize-winning book.
Right.
It's going to take place at the Scranton Cultural Center on Thursday, April 18th at 7 p.m.
And to get tickets?
Tickets are available at any Lackawanna County library or online. You can go to our website to find the link, and that's www.lclshome.org.
And those tickets are free. Mary Garn, thank you so much.
Good luck, Mary.
Pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
you
so
joining
much.
us. Rusty Fender, thank you
Good
for
to see you, Dave.
being my co-host. And Mark McGlory, thank you for
Mark.
keeping us in focus. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Until we see you again next time, here's hoping all your news is good.